Good morning, everyone. Hi, Donna. Good morning, Avenel, Denise, Janet. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're all doing well. I'm having one of those days that's turning into one of those days. Hi, Jean. Good morning, Karen. We had some gorgeous weather here yesterday. I think it was 70 degrees. And then today it's supposed to be, I think, 48 and then rain later. Ugh. Kind of nice though. It was wonderful to be able to be outside, and Rainbow Stamper got to ride around on his Jeep, his Power Wheels, and his bike, all kinds of fun stuff. Hi, Erin. Good morning, Fran. Hi, Judy. So I just wanted to let you guys know that anyone who placed an order in January, your thank you cards will probably be going out next week. And I will send out all the emails with the PDFs and everything. Heat wave, I know, it was totally crazy. Oh, good morning, Delphine from France. Bonjour. Not so bad, Indiana. I know, it's kind of weird, this weather. I think it's supposed to be really cold this weekend, though. So today, what I'm going to share with you, so in case you guys haven't heard, there is going to be some new items that are going to be released. I believe it is the 15th of February for Celebration. So they're going to bring a couple really cool things. There is a stamp set and an embossing folder. And then what is that other thing? Hold on, let me see. It's a bundle. It's a stamp set and really, really beautiful paper. So that is going to be coming up soon. Let's see what I can share. And let's see, what did I print out here that I think possibly can share? I'll go with this. So there's also going to be some new items coming out for sale in March. However, you can purchase them as a demonstrator starting now. And there are actually some really great coordinating dies. So the frogs have a die set, and there's like a little lily pad and some cute little lotus flowers, and there's something that goes along with the cupcake stamp set. So basically there's like dies for everything, which is really cool, and then a super nice punch. So I have a couple of those things I'm waiting on, but those will be available for purchase come March 1st, and then again, like I said, I think it's next week it starts the new celebration stuff. So what I saw was, and I saw this on, I can't remember what I was looking on. I was looking for ideas for card class for Friday because I have 3 really cool ideas, and I was trying to find like a 4th one that was not too hard. But I I looked around and I found something called the faux linen technique. So I don't know if you guys have seen this before. Again, this is from, well, probably 10 years ago. So you all may have done this and it might be like old hat to you, but I thought it was pretty neat. So I figured we would do that today because I didn't have an idea planned. And, you know, that's usually how we go. We kind of go by the seat of our pants here. So, yeah, I heard there was some major snow in Utah. So things are going a little slower in Utah today for that snowstorm. So I guess that means the cold is heading towards the East Coast, which is where I am. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing this with, this is glossy paper. And then I have as unused as I could find in the basement, because I know there's lots of different sanding blocks. I think Stampin' Up! Even used to carry some different sanding blocks. But this is just a sanding block. It's probably fine. I'm not really sure. I just grabbed one because I kind of just need to brush some stuff off. And then the only question I have for you guys is, would you want to do it with the crackle paint? Which I haven't used this that much, so I think that'll be fun. Or we could do it with the postscript. But I think if we did the crackle paint, I also brought out the Let It Ride, because I thought maybe we could put something like this on top of it. Again, I'm not 100% sure yet. I haven't pre-done any, so I don't know what we're going to do. But I thought we could do something with the crackle paint and Let It Ride. Or also Rooted in Nature would be great, because we have these really nice sentiments that we could add to it. So, and we could add these in the background. So I thought maybe crackle paint would be a little bit more fun, but we'll see. Crackle. I've got crackle. You've never done that technique, Donna? I thought you invented that technique. Just kidding. You got your pre-order. That's awesome. I didn't do mine thus far. I was going to do it the other day and then I got distracted. So I'm still waiting. Crackle. All right. So crackle paint. We're going to do crackle. Another time I'll make one with the postscript. So we're going to do the crackle paint. And then one other thing I wanted to tell you, when I redid my ribbon, so if you guys didn't see, I have 2 huge ribbon holders that I got from Stampin' Storage. And I could not find, if you remember, I lost this stamp and I was so distraught. Well, guess what? When I actually pulled them out and we hung them on the wall, I found my stamp. So I was so excited. I forgot to share that with you guys. So I relocated my my stamp, and I went ahead, I have been doing this, I went ahead and stickered all of my stamps, which now I have to get into the habit of doing because I've had them unstickered for so long. So I went and put all of the stickers on my stamps, and then I have all of my little extra pieces here, and I'll show you. I have quite a few because I've ordered quite a few stamp sets, but I have all my extra cling mount stuff here that I can use, so especially for these background pieces, because you get these nice strips. And then what you'll do is you'll just put a little strip on the back so you can retrofit your clear mount to be cling mount. But I'll be really happy when we all go cling mount. But every time I've been getting out a stamp set, I've been trying to make sure that I take the time to put my stickers on. That way I can see what everything is. All right, it's the little things in life, isn't it, Patricia? So what we're going to do is we're going to do the crackle paint first, and then I might add still like maybe these leaves and maybe this little branch here, and then we'll somehow incorporate the horses into it. So I don't really know exactly what this is going to look like because I haven't done it before. So I have one backup piece just in case this really looks horrible. We have to start over. But I am going to just ink directly into my stamp. So this is really nice when you have these sticky with these new cling mounts. These are really, really, really sticky. So I'm going to just lay this down into my actual stamp case. And then we're going to ink this up. And I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it with Mossy Meadow, just to do something different instead of just doing brown. So we'll do Mossy Meadow. So I'm going to just ink this in here, which this is a great cheat if you want to use your background stamps, but maybe you forgot to bring your big background stamp block. Just do this. This is pretty simple. So then I'm going to just lay this down. And actually, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to grab my scrap paper here. Oops. And I'm just going to press, try to keep my fingers slightly clean. And let's see, pick this up. Okay, so it looks pretty cool. So you could also, if you wanted to, maybe you could coat this with a color ahead of time. Because again, we're kind of doing this as you go. And then we're gonna actually sand off the finish. So we do have to let that dry a little bit. So I'm just basically taking my chamois and just wiping my stamp out here in the case. So then it's clean. You just close it up. And this will probably be the only thing because it is going to take it a minute to dry because we don't want it to be smudgy. So we're going to have to wait a moment for this part to dry. In the meantime, let me grab, we'll do it tone on tone. So I'm going to bring out a piece of Mossy Meadow. So we're going to lay this onto a piece of Mossy Meadow. So I'll go ahead and get that out and we'll cut that in the meantime and maybe finish the inside while we're waiting for this to dry. So I'm just going to slide this over here. And I have another really great card to share with you guys. I just keep postponing it. It's pretty simple actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just score this at 4 1/4. And then I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2. That way I'll have 2 bases. So I'll have a second one ready if so. So we have the score mark already in here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to just trim up a piece for the inside. So I'm going to trim this to 4 by 5 1/4. But I have this, so I have this other card that I actually saw an idea in the occasions catalog. Actually, this might be fine. But what they did was they actually decorated a box. And I actually made it into a card. So I want to share that with you guys, but it does take a little bit of time because of the coloring. So maybe we'll do that one next week because it was really fun. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this. on the score line. So then I have my piece for the inside here. So what we'll do is I'm going to just for the point of decorating a little bit, I'm going to get out my Mossy Meadow. And again, I just have this on the side waiting for it to dry a little bit. And I'm going to stamp the trees on the inside. And I think I'm going to stamp the trees on the outside too. Look how easy that picks up. Isn't that great? Just drop it anywhere. It's so nice. I love these new stamps. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my scrap paper back out. And I'm going to just put this on just to give like a little bit of extra. So I'm just going to kind of randomly stamp this. You won't really see that much, so that's why I'm just doing the, just doing the edge. Do the top a little bit too. This would be a pretty cool card just with doing this, because even with those trees on there with the tone on tone, and you could put like a greeting in the center, that would look really neat. So this is going to be our base card. And then I'm going to bring in, this is just my inside panel of Whisper White. We'll kind of stick with this. This will be a simple card with just the tone on tone. And if you wanted to, if you want to add a second layer of trees back here, you can kind of just add a lighter shaded set of trees. So, and clean this off, and we're gonna add a sentiment to the inside while we're at it. If you wanted to, you could even add like one of these, and then add your sentiment on it as well. We'll just stamp this off first, so I'll show you what we're gonna do for that. Just bring this over. Let's see. Now for this one, since I mounted it, you just definitely have to press a little bit before you do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this, stamp it off, and then we'll just kind of put this over here. Oh, that was a little lighter, but that's okay, just for our sentiment. And then on the inside, how about if we add, I just love this one. Live as if someone left the gate open. We're going to add that one, because I really like that one. And we'll add some sort of a sentiment onto the front as well once we get that crackle paint situated. I just don't know what yet. So let me make sure this is nice and inked before I stamp it. That looks beautiful. I love the font on this as well. And that'll give you plenty of room to, you know, leave something for a sentiment so you can add something else to it. All right, so let me check on this background and we'll see if it's dry enough to use. So I still have my Mossy Meadow. I just want to, and the other thing you could do with your Mossy Meadow, if you didn't want to stamp this, since you're going to cover it up, you could also just use your sponge dauber, or you could just use your ink pad and just scrape along the sides just to kind of give a little something to it. So we're just want to give it a little texture. So that'll be on the inside. And I really like this Mossy Meadow. I'm so glad they brought this color back. So that's going to be the inside of our card. And let's see what this looks like. I'm just going to attempt to see if it's dry. Yeah, looks dry for the most part, I think. I'm going to hit it just quickly with the heat tool. I don't want to put it too close because it will warp that finish. So when you're doing this, excuse me, when you're doing this, you want to make sure you give this enough time to dry. So if you're going to do this technique, you want to make sure it is fully dry. That's one very important part. So I'm going to just heat this just for a second. And there's actually two different ways that you can do this technique. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over and I'm just going to press it just to make sure there's no wet spots. There's actually two different ways you can do this technique. So that just picked up a little bit of ink. The other one is a little bit more time consuming, but I'm going to try that one too one day because it did look like it was pretty fun. You would do that instead with tissue paper. So, all right, so we're going to take our sanding block here. And basically now what we're doing is, and you have to do this both ways to get the effect that you're going for, okay? So you're going to, probably should move my water so I don't get dust in it. You're going to sand across and up and down, but we're going to do them one at a time, okay? So I'm going to do across first. You can see it is picking up some of the ink there. can feel it is taking some of the finish off. And then I'm going to use the crossways, the thinner side, to do the up and down. Just going to turn this around. And what we're wanting to do is to basically take some of the finish off of this. So again, this could be that I need a little bit rougher of a grit, but it definitely is taking off some of the finish. Okay. So you can see, you can't really see on the camera, I don't believe, but it's definitely much more dull. You can see that there are grid lines in this, okay? So now what I'm going to do, normally what you would do is you're going to let this dry. And then if you wanted to add in, say, if you wanted to add in another image, you could stamp like the trees, or you could stamp something like the leaves. You could stamp it. You have to let it dry again, and then you would re-sand it one more time. But kind of for the sake of that part, I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to just make sure this is a little bit sanded. I'm pressing moderately hard. But like I said, if you have a harder grit, you can see right here now it's starting to dust a little bit. If you have a harder grit paper, it's definitely going to, sandpaper I mean, it's going to take more finish off. Oop. Okay, so now I'm going to just take this and I'm going to kind of shake it off over the trash can, but then I'm also going to use a towel just to wipe it off. So and I'm going to just take a towel just to wipe it. Now the other thing you're going to do, and again, this is kind of subjective on what it is that you want to accomplish from it. Oh, I should have been more careful. I wish I wouldn't have wrinkled that up, but that's okay. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a sponge. So I'm just going to grab a sponge. You could do this with, again, you could do it with Mossy Meadow, okay, because you do want it to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to just do that just to stick with the same color. But you could do this with Early Espresso, might be a little dark, Soft Suede, Crumb Cake, Sahara Sand, but you kind of want, you're going to see in a second, hopefully, if it picks up the way the ink is going to be. So I'm sponging a little bit of ink on here, but then I'm going to tap it off. Let me close this up. I'm going to move this one. I'm going to tap it off a little bit before I sponge on here. And it should pick up the lines that you put in so that it looks like linen. And that's also the reason why you want to go both directions, because linen would have crosshairs in both directions. So you can really sponge any way. It doesn't have to be that you're sponging just crosswise or just up and down. But if you can see, it's starting to pick up the streaks from the sandpaper. And then basically you can continue and do the same thing again. Let's see. And it should pick up both streaks. So the other way that you can do this is actually to stamp a piece of tissue paper. So when we have another day, so there's that. So I'm not going to sponge anymore, and I'm going to give this just a minute to kind of sit and dry a little bit. But what you can do is you can stamp a piece of tissue paper. So you would get a white piece of tissue paper. You would stamp, say you stamped, you could even do the tree, but you kind of want to do something that's a little more line art. So you could do the horse, you could stamp it onto that, and you're going to stamp it with black ink. You have to make sure you do let it dry. You're going to color this in with either markers. I'm not sure how the blends would work. I haven't tried that yet, but this was obviously an older technique. So you could color it with markers. You have to let it completely dry because the tissue paper is a little bit slippery. But then the other thing that you do is you crumple it up, and then you can either use the Sizzix adhesive sheets, and I'm just trying to wipe off a little bit of this ink for when I sand again. So you could use the Sizzix adhesive sheets, or you could use Tombow liquid glue. And I'm just going to go back and sand one more time. And you're going to crumble up the image, and then you adhere it to your glossy paper. And the way the crumbles stick on there, it kind of looks more like linen. So there was a couple different ways you could do it, which I thought both of them were pretty neat. But they were very unique, both, you know, in both directions. Because they were similar, but also one of them definitely was more time consuming with the waiting for the part to dry. So there's what it looks like. You can see there are some significant lines. It is much more dull than it was when we started. So again, this is supposed to look like a faux linen. So if you wanted to now at this point, the other thing we could do, and again, I'm going to stick with the same kind of colors. So you could stamp the trees on. You could stamp the horses somewhere in the background. So what I'm going to do is, I'm trying to think what I think is going to look best on the crackle. I'm going to stamp the horse head just for something different. We'll see what this looks like. So we have the horse head. Just make sure he fits on that block. And instead of doing this with sticking with the Mossy Meadow, I'm going to do him in Early Espresso. Just so it kind of goes more with the theme of this horse. There we go. So let's see. And again, you do have to be careful because this is still slightly slippery when you stamp. I'm going to stamp him here. There we go. Okay. And for the sake of, I don't want to repeat with 50,000. I'm going to do one more horse. Do one over here. Up a little bit. Okay, so same thing again. So I have my two horses. So once again, let me just wipe off my stamp. Give that a second. And then I'm going to kind of do the same thing again where I tap over this just with, here it is, a piece of paper just to kind of pick up a little bit of that. There we go. So we got just a little bit of the shadow. It wasn't too much ink. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to just go over top of this. And it is going to make it, this is a little bit wetter, so that's why you can see it's kind of slightly smudging. You'll be better off with your complete drying. Now, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with soft suede ink, and I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to grab soft suede. I just flipped the other side of the sponge. And we're going to just go over, kind of just add in both directions a little bit more color to that, so it kind of has that old look. And one other thing I do want to say, it could be that the crackle paint is a lot for the background, so it's not letting the linen show quite as much. So I'm gonna have to try this again too with but you can see it's definitely got, it's not really very glossy. You can see a lot of the lines. I'm gonna grab a little bit of this soft suede re-inker and just fill this up real quick. Okay. And once again, if you can see, when you see the dots on the top, this is still being absorbed fairly quickly. So this pad is a little bit dry, but if you want to speed it up, you're just going to take your sponge or your spoon and press it in. So that didn't take very much effort at all to push that in. So that pad was pretty dry. And then all I usually do is just wipe my sponge off. You can wipe it with a baby wipe as well if you want. And I just use the same one over and over again. And what this will do, again, is it's supposed to pick up the grains that you've sanded off. But could possibly benefit from having a little higher grit paper, the sanding block. Okay, so there you can see it's picking it up in the different patterns on that. Okay, so all we're going to do now is I'm going to layer this, and then I'm going to add a sentiment to the front. So we have our horses on there. Now I am going to definitely put this down with some fast fuse. You could do Tombow liquid glue, but I just want to make sure that it really, really sticks. Mostly because I botched the whole thing up when I accidentally sanded it a little bit hard and kind of crinkled up my paper. So I'm going to put this on. Make sure I press it. And it definitely is a dirty finger job, so you're going to have messy hands when you're done. And then I'm going to put the inside on just with a little bit of snail. And coming from someone who has found out that a few of her cards fell apart, don't be shy when you put your adhesive on. You don't want your card to fall apart. So there's that. And then we're going to add, so I'm going to add the sentiment onto a piece of white. And then what we'll do is we'll trim it out a little bit. So if we put on the inside, live as if someone left the gate open. And on the front, I'm just going to put go for it. So we'll do that on a smaller, just a little piece of Whisper White here that I had hanging around from something. And I am going to stick with the same color. I'm going to use Mossy Meadow for this. So again, this is only the first one I ever did, so I'm sure there is lots of things I could do to perfect this technique. There we go. And what I'm going to do, let me think. I think I'm going to add the trees on this, but I'm going to stamp them off first. What's that look like? It's pretty light. I'm going to go for the third time. There you go, for the background. Just to give like a little something instead of just that white piece. Since everything else here is pretty colored, I don't want to have it like being so stark white. Move this over. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to flag the end of this. So I'm going to keep this part straight. We could trim it down a little bit if we wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it large like it is. So if you want to flag something and you may not necessarily have a punch that fits it, what you do is you're just going to snip in the middle like that, and then you're going to come from the corner and meet your middle just like that. Just like that. So then you have your little flagged piece. Other thing we could do too, and this is what I was telling you earlier that you can do if you either don't have a sponge or you don't have a dauber, is you can just take your ink pad and you kind of just tap your piece of paper into it. So you can see there, this one was really inked. Remember, we just re-inked this. So you just tap your piece into it and it'll kind of line the edges there for you. Again, just kind of removing a little bit of that stark white part. And since I had this sponge, I'm just going to do the corner. And if you would like to lighten the edges and you don't want it to be so dark, you could just use your sponged edge. There you go. So that will finish that up. I'm gonna have to go downstairs. Now, one other thing with the glossy paper, even though we did sand this, sometimes you might have a hard time getting your paper to stick to the gloss. So I'm going to just, in the event of skipping that part, I'm going to use the Tombow liquid glue. And that way it'll make sure it stays on there. And I don't really want to cover up the horse's head, so I'm going to kind of leave it so it just comes to the edge. So you can see it just comes to the edge of that paper there. So I know this is kind of an unusual card, but it is kind of neat looking, really. Just with the different colors in it. And again, it still does have a little bit of the sheen. And if you can see, I'm going to see if I can get it in there enough that you can see that It's very hard to see the grains, but there is a lot of grain in this with the ink. You can see the swiping. So it's pretty neat, but again, it might work out better with a couple things. So just keep this in mind if you're going to decide to give this a shot. You might want to try doing a block, or if you maybe you guys already have some distressing blocks, or you have some distressing blocks from when Stampin' Up! Did this. Maybe get a distressing block that is a little bit of a not as fine grit. So maybe like a medium grit might be a good idea. And you could probably do this with a piece of sandpaper as well. The other idea would be possibly to, instead of using the crackle paint, because this is pretty covered, I think this would really be cool with this. Especially if you were going to send somebody maybe a card that was going either on a vacation, or somebody who was moving, or somebody who was going to, I don't know, go out and explore the world in whatever way. If you did the postscript, because I think this would lend really well to the sanding portion of it. So postscript would look great, especially if you did it too with soft suede. You stamp it. You do have to wait for it to really dry. So this is something you're going to have to do in steps. But you could stamp it again. We did do this on glossy paper. Stamp your postscript. If you wanted to try something lighter for the first layer, the other thing you could do too is you could do a crumb cake for your first layer of postscript. That way you could sand it off pretty well, and then you could add the other additional images in with soft suede instead. So, stamping off would be another good idea too. Shimmer paper. So the thing is with the shimmer paper, what you're doing with the glossy is you're actually sanding off a layer of the paper. So I don't know how well the shimmer paper would hold off. It is probably worth giving it a try. But what we're doing is we're stamping and then we're removing something. So with the glossy paper, you're actually removing the gloss portion of it, if that makes sense. So I think that's why it gives you the linen scrub to it. But I could be wrong because I haven't tried on anything else for that. Late, that's okay, Janet. Better late than never. Yeah, that'd be a great idea for travel scrapbooks. It's called the faux linen technique, Mary. So if you Google it on Pinterest or Google, if you look it up, you'll definitely find a lot of ideas. And again, there's a whole different way that you can do it too. So I will try and do a video on the other technique. And the reason I'm not going to do it live is because it does require a lot of drying. So what I'll do is when I do the other linen technique with the crinkled paper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to have an image that's already dried. That way I can do that. So maybe we can try that one another time live as well, and we can just pre-stamp part of it, decide what we have to do. But I think this turned out pretty nice with the tone on tone, and definitely we brought in a little bit of the soft suede, which kind of made it pretty cool as well. And the crackle paint, if you haven't gotten this one, it really makes for some great backgrounds. Another really good idea before I let you guys go, if you haven't ever done this, is to use white embossing powder with the crackle paint. So you would ink this with Versamark and stamp onto dark cardstock, and then white embossing paint, the crackle paints. Oh my gosh, I have seen so many cards, which I'm going to need to do one. So maybe I'll finish up and do one real quick and share it with you guys. But it's such a cool technique. So you can either do it on black, dark gray, any of the dark greens, or any of the darker browns would be really cool. So give you something else to do, right? And then I will come back and share with you the other way to do the faux linen technique. But this is a great use if you haven't gotten your background stamps out in a while and you don't really know exactly what you want to do with them. It's a great use for them in the background for something different. And then always don't forget to make your inside of your card pretty as well. So thank you guys very much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will be back again next Wednesday, which will be the 13th, with another card idea, technique, or something. Maybe we'll do that mystery card that I keep talking about that I haven't shared yet. So that one will be a pretty fun one as well. That one uses the watercolor pencils, and it uses the, I'll show you a little bit. What does it use? Oh, goodness, I can't even remember. It's the stamp set that has, Lord, I lost it. It's the stamp set that has the hummingbird and the hibiscus flower in it. So really pretty. So thank you guys for watching. I'll post this onto the blog later with everything that I used and all the products and everything. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.